Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. I wanted to start with us just imagining a business scenario. Let's imagine that we've got a company that builds and maintains bus shelters. So they send out scouts to, part of their business process is to send out scouts who rove around the city looking out for damaged bus shelters, and they assess those scouts assess and they log the damage. Maybe they take some photographs as well, and then they send that information back to a central kind of admin team. That admin team then looks at this data coming in. They triage the work to specialist teams. So maybe you've got a team that goes out to clean up graffiti. Maybe you've got a team that specializes in actually fixing, I don't know, broken glass and things like that. And so those teams then go out, they carry out their work, they fix what they have to fix, and they write a report, maybe take a few photos of their work when it's done, and they then send them back through to the central team. And then the final step in this scenario is that the council or municipality would get invoiced for the work done. So fairly ordinary scenario. It's unlikely that we've got anyone here who works for a company that maintains and builds bus shelters, but it is a pretty typical scenario. And if you boil it down, you can think of many firms that have similar processes running in them. So let's boil it down. Essentially, there are three things going on here. We've got data collection, we've got triaging and workflow, and then we've got reporting as well. You could potentially add a fourth thing, though in my scenario we didn't have that, and a fourth thing could be making knowledge resources available so that teams can access them. So once upon a time, if you were a forward-looking company and wanted to digitize this type of process, you would have built a bespoke system. It would have been complex and expensive. It would have taken you time to build it, and you would have almost certainly would have built it from the ground up. Now I say once upon a time, but I think the reality is there are probably still lots of companies that are that would still be doing it like this. What's interesting is that actually these days with Office 365, you don't have to do it that way. As we all know, Office 365 comes with lots and lots of tools. To the untrained eye, these tools, and this is a complaint that we hear from people sometimes, but these tools can feel very kind of disconnected. But in fact, the reality is far from that. The reality is that Office 365 contains lots of built-in integrations. So we've got integrations, for example, between SharePoint and Flow. We've got integrations between, say, SharePoint and PowerApps, or maybe Outlook and Flow. There are lots and lots of little touch points that kind of bring all of the Office 365 tools together. Then on top of this, we've got lots of connectors that are built into Office 365. So you can even connect out to other applications. You've probably seen the connectors that are available in Teams when you want to add an app to a team that you're working on. And on top of this, we've also got graph APIs that allow us to build little applications, little scripts that create yet more connections between the moving parts of Office 365. So with all of this, we can actually build solutions that provide the digitization of the process that I started out and described at the start. So today we're going to talk about scenario like the one I just described can be delivered with Office 365. We're going to go into quite a lot of detail, show you some demonstrations as well, show you some of the work that we've actually done. So the last webinar that we did was about Teams and SharePoint, and the kind of clever integrations that you can have running between that and the clever customizations. That's still online. I'd encourage you to go and have a look at it. It's on our YouTube channel. Just go on, search for Content Formula on YouTube. So this time we're going to talk about Teams and SharePoint a little bit, but our focus is going to be mostly around PowerApps and also how that can be integrated with Teams and SharePoint and other parts of Office 365. However, before we start kind of getting into that detail, I just wanted to say just a little bit about us so that you know who we are. So my name is Dan Hawtrey. I'm the MD of Content Formula. We're a London-based consultancy. We specialize in Office 365 and SharePoint. We build digital workplace tools on this platform. We also build intranets on this platform. So we're a big reseller of Wisdom, which sits on top of SharePoint and Office 365. And we also do custom intranets kind of directly on top of SharePoint and Office 365 as well. We take a lot of pride in creating solutions well designed and intuitive and a pleasure to use. So anyway, that's enough about Content Formula and who we are. I'm now going to introduce you to the other guys on the team. So John Scott is our head of UX at Content Formula, and Joe Perry is our technical director at Content Formula. And so let's get on with the webinar. So John, go for it.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Dan. So basically, I'm going to just do a quick recap from our last webinar where we talked about a case study where we integrated SharePoint with Microsoft Teams. I'm just going to do a quickly run through a recap on that just to bring it up to speed so that then we can evolve the story and talk about PowerApps. So you should see my screen. Please shout in the questions box if you can't, but it looks like you can. So I'm just going to take you through that quickly. So basically, this private equity firm who invest in other companies called X Capital, they approached us with telling us about their situation, how they work. Basically, when they're deciding whether or not to invest in a company, they'll go through an 8-stage process. And they can have many of these investment opportunities being analysed at any one time. And with each one, they'll go through these 8 stages, where at each stage, they'll collect new bits of information from different people in that business potentially or elsewhere, and they'll compile all this information and they'll use it to make a decision ultimately on whether or not to invest. Now, some investment opportunities don't go through all 8 stages. They may choose to decline the opportunity in stage 2 or 3, let's say. But it is possible to go through 8 stages and then make an investment. Now, what they wanted to do was use Microsoft Teams to kind of collect all the information as part of these the analysis of these investment opportunities, because they recognise that Teams is a great platform for a few people to work together to sort of share files in there and collect information and have conversations, and it all be sort of neatly organised. You can add obviously new people to that team at any point in the process and so on, and they can see everything. So they thought, that's great, we want to use that, but we're a bit worried about how chaotic it may become and how inconsistent the process may be across these different investment opportunities, because at the end of the day, Microsoft Teams out of the box is sort of a blank canvas. You configure each team how you want to, and you work how you want to. What we did was, what we wanted to do was make sure that all of these different teams working on different investment opportunities were doing things in a very structured and consistent way. And that's where we integrated SharePoint with Teams, where SharePoint provided that structure. So on their SharePoint intranet, they basically have a page called the pipeline, which is their opportunity pipeline, where all of their investment opportunities go into this list of pipeline opportunities. They basically have as many in here as they want, and it will keep records for all of them, even ones that have been declined as opportunities. And from here, you can search for opportunities and check on the status of them and so on. So it's a really good sort of management view of what's going on. But also, if I'm going to analyze a new opportunity, I'll click Add Opportunity here to add that to the pipeline. It takes me through to a form where I fill in some information about that opportunity, about that business, some key sort of starting information, and then I say OK to that, and it creates me my record in the pipeline. And now, initially, of course, that's pretty empty. It's got some of that initial data that I put in, but not much has been collected yet. And you can see here we're on just this lead tab, which is, so we're at stage or phase 1, which is the lead. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving there, actually. But yeah, you can. OK, great. So that's where you start. Now, nothing has happened in Teams yet. This is just the initial record created in SharePoint. Once we decide as an investment team that, yeah, we're going to proceed with this based on what we understand about this business so far, we're going to proceed to the next stage, I would click on that in this SharePoint page. That will do a couple of things. First of all, it will create a new tab here to go to stage 2, sorry, 1, sorry, it goes 0 to 1. But then in the background, importantly here, it creates a Microsoft team, and it pushes into that team certain information. So if I just go, so there the second tab comes up for summary, and in the background it creates the team. So if I go into Teams here, what it does is it creates the team in Teams, and it adds the first channel in Teams, which represents the summary stage, and it injects some template files from a central repository into that channel, ready to be completed by the team, to ensure that they are using the right templates and completing the right information, collecting the right information for every opportunity at this stage. So that it kind of creates that structured framework within Teams that is sort of missing out of the box. And then if I go back to SharePoint, as they progress through each stage of the opportunity, we're on stage 5 here. If I go back into Teams, sorry, actually I should point out here, as we're at stage 5, we've gone through several stages. You can also see the documents from Teams on the right here. So you get a kind of view into Teams and the files that have been created and stored. And if I go back into Teams point, you'll see that on the left here, we've got many more channels. So as I go through the different stages of an investment opportunity, new channels get added to the team. So it's incrementally creating more and more areas and adding more and more templates from that central repository to be completed. So it's enforcing consistency and really kind of ensuring that the process is followed correctly. Now that's the end of that piece. So that's just the recap on where we were there with SharePoint and Teams. And now we wanted to take that to the next level. So there was one major opportunity here for us to provide this information to people, not just in SharePoint and Teams, but to provide it to them, for example, on a mobile phone or any other device like a tablet and so on. And that's where PowerApps comes in. So I'm going to share my screen now with you from my mobile phone. If I go there, it should be live. Okay, sorry, 1 second. I'll just have to reset it.
How can I help?
Yeah.
Sorry about this, guys. We tested this several times before the session, and it worked perfect.
Just times out, unfortunately.
It times out. Yeah. Looks like we're coming back online though with this.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I need to just play that. Okay, so everyone should see this now. Yeah, great. So you can see my mobile. This is an iPhone 7 Plus. It's the home screen. Now, basically, with what you can do with PowerApps is you can create an app that can be rolled out to people in the organization. You can access those apps from the PowerApps app. Sorry. So if I go into here and I go to PowerApps, which is the bottom one here, the purple one at the bottom, I get there, so I can see any apps that my company has published as part of Office 365. So I'll automatically see everything there in the list. If I wanted to use an app frequently, I could pin it to my home screen as if it's an app in its own right on my home screen. I just go here, go pin to home at the bottom there and do that. I've already done it, so I won't do it this time. And then if I go back to the pipeline, the home screen here, you can see on the bottom right, I've got pipeline app. I'm going to just go into that. So we've created this pipeline app using PowerApps, and that is talking to the SharePoint platform that we've created for this, as well as Teams, to provide information to basically an investment analyst or somebody in a director role at the company to get overview information on what's going on with opportunities. So the dashboard is a place where you get some of that sort of management information. It shows in the last 6 months, for example, there's been 43 leads, we've declined 22, we've set 12 to be monitored, and we've invested in 7. So it's giving you some headline data from the opportunity pipeline. So of course you can consume this on your mobile device. You don't have to go into a SharePoint intranet, and typically these analysts will be moving from meeting to meeting and so on, and there'll be a chance for them to check the data on the train or on so on, and they can do that here. But then also, if I go into, it's just locked on me. Also, I can go into the Teams area, and this shows me the opportunity pipeline items that I'm working on, where there's a team basically associated with it. It's just going to load. This is dynamic, so does depend on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is showing me teams that I'm a member of. So these are investment opportunities that I'm working on. I'm part of the team in analysing these. If I go into one of those here, I can go into Alpha Services, and I normally could do this from SharePoint or in Teams, but now I can do it in the app with PowerApps. I can provide some information like what investment amount are they requesting, or what's the current valuation. There's a multitude of other fields that I would need to populate at different stages of the process, so I can just do that from my mobile device. But also I can do something a bit more interesting, like I can add some photos. So I'm on my phone. It's easy for me to take some photos. With this particular company, they actually own the building they're in, so it's a sort of important part of the investment. And so you can upload photos of the process here.
You can use it to upload documents as well.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be documents.
Documents.
Yeah, that aren't digital. Yeah, you could do that as well. So I just press that here to add a photo. I'll go to take a photo. It will go straight to my camera, and I can take a photo of the building. And that will then be uploaded into that SharePoint pipeline opportunity and Teams. There's a bit of lag, sorry, on this. And it will be captured there in Teams. So, it's an example of using the mobile device in a sort of very efficient way to collect that sort of information, rather than having to go through the process of moving the files from your phone to your computer and then uploading them via Teams. You can just do that on site when you're there, and it's done. And then also from the app, we can do things like proceed to the next stage, or we can decline or monitor the opportunity if we just want to say, no, we've gone as far as we want to with this. So those controls are also available. And then also we've got things like, okay, well, what if I want to look at the other opportunities that I'm not necessarily working on, but other people are? I can also see that full opportunity pipeline list here in the app. And there's also the ability to just get some sort of help information, so I can provide some contextual help for using the app or just the whole process in general. So there's a few tabs there with different bits of functionality that really just add to the whole experience and round out the journey for people involved in this pipeline process, whether they be directors of the company who are just monitoring this stuff, or they're investment analysts actually working on collecting the information. This allows them to do parts of it much more sort of easily from their mobile device.
So you could, if you wanted to, you could just deliver this over the browser, right? They could just go into their intranet, by intranet, whatever it was, over the browser. So what are the advantages of doing it through the app?
So, well, I mean, so here you see, I'm just showing my screen now. I'm showing this app running in a browser. You can just deliver it like that, and you can deliver that in a tab within Teams, for example, as well. The advantages of doing it, of course, are things like, well, when you've got actions like take a photo, if you need to collect information like photo-based or video-based information, you can very easily do that from the app on the phone, and then it's just straight in. It's not, you don't have to do any sort of transferring between devices and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's an ideal case. And then obviously the other one is just, well, if you're on the move all the time, on the go, and you just need to know the headline information like this dashboard provides on what's the how are we doing at the moment with this stuff. I don't want to have to log into my computer, go into SharePoint and all that stuff.
Right, yeah. And I suppose you can also limit the experience as well, so you don't have to show everybody the whole intranet or the whole digital workplace. It's just very focused on the task. Which might be relevant. You might have some frontline workers, for example, who haven't been kind of trained on, not used to using the intranet and wouldn't necessarily know where to go.
Definitely, that's a big thing actually here, because as Joe will show you in a second when he goes into how this is built, you've got complete control over the user interface. You can really simplify things so that the task at hand is the only focus, so that people just can't get confused. You can really make them focus in on the one thing you want them to do, and just sort of increase.
And that's so important in making tools really intuitive and easy to use. I think as digital workplace experts, we're kind of all guilty of kind of thinking that everybody understands what we've designed, and they understand our realm, our intranet, whatever it is. So absolutely.
I think quite an interesting point at the moment is this Power App that you've created is, we say it's available on mobile. It's not just actually a whole range of devices as well. So it's quite like before, if we were developing an app like this, we'd have to develop it for iOS and then probably port it across to Android, and then perhaps have to create it again for Windows. One of the great benefits of Power Apps is that out of the box, you instantly support the Windows desktop, the Mac desktop, the Windows Phone, Mac, iOS, and Android. So even the kind of the users that we're targeting, the audience has got much broader just by using this technology.
And all they have to do is download the PowerApps app that's produced by Microsoft, and that automatically pumps your tools into it.
And if they're managed devices, we can actually push that out as well. So if we are looking at enterprise managed devices, these apps can be pushed out to people so that they instantly get the Power App too. So there's a lot of good things we can do with that.
And of course, here we've got kind of, I think, three main functions in one app. You could equally split those out into separate apps and deliver those to different sets of people, rather than just having one app that does everything. Or, I mean, you could even just permission control, though, couldn't you, tabs within this app, so that certain people only see certain tabs.
Exactly, it's a personalised experience, everything we're seeing here. So the data's personalised, tabs can be personalised, we can know who the user is who's accessing it, so we can actually do quite a lot of things with it to make it relevant to their job. So if they are the person going out to bus stops taking photos, perhaps that's all they see. Perhaps they see a list of jobs that they have to carry out for the day. They can do that. But a manager logs in, they actually see a dashboard, and they can track where people are using GPS and all of these great things.
And it just uses standard permissions that are available in your Office 365, essentially, and Active Directory.
And then it quickly integrates with things like Flow to kick off workflows and all of that sort of stuff. So there's lots of good things there.
So I mean, in this app, for example, we see data here being pulled from SharePoint. We see, I'll just click onto that. We see a live feed from Microsoft Teams, the teams that I'm a member of, that are working on these investment opportunities. So there's it's touching different parts of Office 365, and we're not really even touching every part here in this app. It could be do a lot more even.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's quite a lot of options there. I think then, though, my kind of question to Joe initially when we were talking about doing an app in this case was like, well, it's going to take a long time. App development is a massive task. It takes a long time to put this stuff together. So Joe's going to show you what it actually is like, basically, to do this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I guess whilst I'm showing, I can talk about it a bit as well, because I guess the common misconception is that you have to be an app developer to build an app. Like, you have to know all sorts of iOS languages, all that sort of stuff to deliver an app. That's kind of taken away a bit with Power Apps. It's a lot of it kind of drag and drop canvas. So I can essentially go into a browser and
so you're in Power Apps here from the waffle menu.
Yeah, yeah.
365. You just gone into Power.
Yeah. So this is Power Apps Studio, what I see here. So it's showing Power Apps that I have available to me, and I can play the app, or I can actually go in and edit the app. And this takes kind of the editor's experience that every developer, every person creating Power Apps sees. There's no kind of advanced mode. This is kind of the typical way you edit a Power App. And the guys at Microsoft have gone down a route of kind of making it extremely easy for anyone to create these apps. It's not, you don't need a developer anymore who knows C# and HTML and web services and all of those things. Power Apps out of the box is drag and drop. It's based on kind of fundamental Excel formulas. So anyone who's ever used an Excel formula to add two numbers together can quickly get up and running with kind of navigating this Power App. So it's taking just a second to load here, but this is now inside of my app. And if let me create a new screen for this instance. So I'm going to create a new screen that allows me to perhaps input some information on. So I want to capture some information. So it adds a screen to my app. I can, up the top, I can insert perhaps a label, which allows me to put some text on my page. So if I add my label, I'm just going to put some text. Well, sorry.
Reminds me a little bit of Visual Basic.
Bit Visual Basic, bit Microsoft Access, a bit Excel. All of these things merged together here to kind of make app development accessible to the masses almost.
Yeah.
And some of the great things about this are not only is it kind of drag and drop for all of these elements, there's a lot of pre-built connectors as well. So we've obviously spoken a lot about connecting with Office 365 and talking with SharePoint and Teams and all of those things. There's connectors for hundreds of different apps out there. So if you're using Trello, if you're using Jira, if you're using Dynamics CRM, if you're using any of a number of apps, there's these pre-built connectors that make it kind of really easy for me to kind of add data straight away into my application. So if let me go back and create a new screen again. I'm going to show you some of these connectors we can add. So if I click to connect data, it shows me the connectors that I've already added. I've already connected to Outlook and SharePoint and Skype for this app. But if I click to create a new connection, these are a list of apps I can kind of connect straight into and either gather data from, interact with, do some sort of action against. So if I look for, say, a common one is Jira, an Atlassian product, I can connect straight into my Jira cloud and start perhaps pulling in a list of issues into my app, or I can connect into Salesforce and show my new sales opportunities that are coming from here. So it's not just having to kind of get a developer now to develop a gateway API that will connect and consume this data. A lot of these kind of services Microsoft are delivering so that apps like Power Apps, Flow, Teams can all consume this data, and we can write quite clever interfaces, quite clever processes into this and make it so that these systems aren't so kind of separate and on their own. we can actually merge a lot of this together now.
And so the real advantage of this, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that it's about speed, isn't it? It's about how quickly we can pull stuff together, because it's easy. A lot of stuff is already pre-built.
It's low code. Like, it is low code. I'm having to write almost zero code here to deliver an app, and obviously that's great. Not everyone is a coder out there. This makes it accessible to a lot more people, so that if I wanted to quick change a view from one of my places, I've got a dynamic list here. Or if I want to change a header, I can quickly go in and change this stuff, and yeah, it makes it really easy to do. So yeah, I really like this PowerApps. I think they're there's a lot of opportunities for companies to quickly get processes out there at low cost and at speed as well.
Yeah.
And so, of course, if you're like a power user, Office 365 power user, you could kind of try and you do this sort of stuff yourself, right? But when you get into sort of slightly more complex apps that require thinking through the user journey, defining what the interface is going to look like, and then actually going ahead and building it, you might want to go to someone like us to do that, but we would be able to do it quicker than we would have done previously, much quicker, because we're kind of building on top of a sort of quite established platform with lots of sort of toolkit ready pieces. Right?
Exactly. Yes, the toolkit is there. We have lots of easy to access canvases. The integrations are just so quick now. Before we would have to think about network access and authentication and all of these things that make connecting to an API difficult. With these pre-built connectors, I can query SharePoint in less than 5 minutes. I can query Salesforce in 10 minutes. Like, these are really quick quick connectors, and it speeds up development and us as developers.
And what happens if actually what you're trying to do, it doesn't exist? There isn't a pre-built connector, or that kind of logic or whatever doesn't exist. Can you custom build components within this?
Yeah, we've still got the ability to use things like tools like Flow, which allow us to call out to external APIs. We can call out here to external APIs. So there's the Microsoft Data Gateway as well that we can connect with, that allows us to write lots of custom code within it. So we've still got plenty of opportunities that if you have got a custom API there that you need to consume data from, we absolutely can fit that into this. So it's really flexible, and when it comes to that side of it.
So in our kind of like our case study example, we talked about how an analyst could use that app to collect some of the information, like the photos as well, or the directors could use it to monitor how things are going with the pipeline opportunities. What about, though, if we wanted to make it so that the businesses that you were thinking about investing in, you wanted them to use the app to give you information about their business and so on? Could you do that at the moment?
It's coming. It's a big thing. Being able to create an app and roll it out to external people. As of today, it's your on-premise organization, or your Office 365 tenancy we're pretty much limited to. It's in the roadmap to be able to invite externals, whether they're working at a company, whether they're just a person out on the street that you want to add into this app. Like, that stuff there's a lot of noise being made around that, and something that people want. And Microsoft have acknowledged it. They said that this is on the roadmap. Obviously, when that will be is another question, but I think a lot of people are after this, and it's something that adds so much value on top of what's already there.
And so, just to put you on the spot a bit, Joe, test your knowledge. What if for example, the example that we used where you take a photo of a document, what could you then do with that document once you've got a photo of it? Could you kind of read that document and turn it into typed text?
There's so much we can do with it. So Azure has lots of services out there that we can plug straight into. So we can plug into artificial intelligence services that perhaps looks at that document and picks up common tagged words in it. So looks at your taxonomy, matches it up, and automatically tags that document even. We can put it through all sorts of Azure Cognitive Services APIs that check for profanity or check for various things inside of that document, or send it off to the OCR reader. I think it is.
Right. There is an OCR reader in there.
Well, there'll be API services out there that we can plug into that translate that document into text. So yeah, we can have it upload a document, and we can do one of many things with it. Yeah, the Azure Cognitive Services and AI stuff is just getting richer and richer by the day. We can do so much with it, whether it's kind of auto-translating documents, checking for profanity, or any number of a whole load of things. It's really interesting, some of the stuff we can do with that.
Okay.
And I guess, just back to what I mentioned about giving access to external people, like, so you could create, like, I guess, a mini customer portal in an app that they can access in desktop, mobile, tablet. But you can surface parts of Office 365 in that app that previously they would have to go to separately, right? So you could give external access to SharePoint for somebody to upload files for you or something, right? But then you could do that via the app, and you could combine it with other Office 365 functions in that one neat little tool, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things that we've seen a lot of companies doing is really embracing Teams, and we've even heard some companies say that they pretty much do everything in Teams. These typically would be kind of smaller or medium-sized companies, but would it be possible to deliver an app like that just within Teams, or would you have to be in PowerApps?
So we talk, I mean, we can deliver apps directly inside of Teams. Yeah, we can absolutely deliver this stuff that's dedicated to Teams.
Right.
Whether it would use the PowerApps foundations, questionable. Teams allow us to create tabs and applications within Teams. So that can use the SharePoint framework, that can use an embedded Power App inside of it. It's we have
got options. You have options then, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Okay. So is there anything else about like what's on the roadmap for Power Apps or integration points that's interesting?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the connectors they're adding to on the daily even. The connections they're building out. I mean, some of them are premium connectors, so you do have to have specific licensing inside of Power BI to access them. The licensing with Flow and Power Apps has changed a lot lately. So there's the connectors they're adding. Some are free, and I say free as in Microsoft's free, but some are their premium connectors, and you do require a Plan 1 Power BI license. Power Apps license even.
It's something we're seeing Microsoft doing quite a lot. It's quite cheeky. Flow was completely free. Well, completely free as included in Office 365, whereas now they've kind of created a Flow premium that you have to pay extra for. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So if you want to execute your Flow like every minute rather than it being every 5 or 10 minutes, that's now a premium service. So you're restricted on how often your Flow will run. So if you need your Flow to kick off instantly and not in 5 minutes time, you know, to pay for it.
So in that example, is it just one? You need to pay for one license, or licenses for your whole organization?
Just your creator.
For the creator. Okay, so it's not a massive deal. Then.
Not necessarily. So some of the kind of what's on the roadmap here is obviously external users. That's one that they've not specifically set a date when this is coming, but we'd imagine we'd see that this year. Enhanced mobile offline support, so the ability to go out and about with your mobile or on a plane even, that's probably the best example, and not have mobile connectivity, but have some sort of offline support. Previously, it's been possible, it's absolutely possible to do it, but there's been a lot of kind of coding effort had to go in to create local data caches, and that often conflicts with how much you can store in an iPhone cache, and you run into a lot of problems, but that's something that's going to be on the roadmap for this year. Canvases, so the ability to create kind of consistent zones across apps, so things like headers and navigations, so you can have a a navigation built into this. It's not kind of
right, rather than completely separate pages where you have to replicate the navigation on
exactly.
So it speeds things up even more.
Exactly. So at the moment, for the app example we've shown there, we've got 5 completely separate navigations actually. And if I was to change a link in one, I'd have to change it in 4 others.
Yeah.
But the Canvas idea is obviously a lot better from a development perspective, because we can set one consistent navigation or one consistent header, and then that's used for our app. We update something in one place and it updates in many places.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And yeah, the analytics around this as well. So how the Power Apps are consumed from a management perspective, they're going to be pushing out more reporting functionality, so that we can really see kind of how these apps are being used, who's using them, what areas of the apps are being kind of utilized most. And that's sort of it.
Great, good. Okay, so I guess that's the last 15 minutes or so. We're really keen to answer any questions you have, so I'm just going to consult the questions that are coming in.
We're keen to hear so ideas as well for our next webinar. In fact, this webinar I think came from feedback from the last one, didn't it? Somebody said, can you do one on Power Apps?
Yeah.
So we keep our promises. So yeah, do give us some feedback on what you'd like to see next.
Yeah. So there's a question box on the go to webinar interface where you can just type in a question and we'll answer those as they come in. Anything you want to know more about, or and so on. So I'll just start answering those. Okay, so yeah, we've got a question about so I think there was a problem with the share on my mobile for a while, but I think it got resolved, and hopefully everyone saw that okay, so apologies for that. So any questions about use cases for Power Apps, what you might be able to use it for, any restrictions or integrations with other part of Office 365? Is anyone using Power Apps already in their organization? We'd be interested to hear about that and tell people about that as well.
Well, you can tell that we do this for real, guys, because we haven't got any stock questions here. Or any people who are kind of posted out there to drop questions in there. But I think actually we got one coming in now. Is that one?
Yeah. So the question about the subscriptions, are they subscription products from Microsoft? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we're discussing Power Apps, Flow Premium, etc. These are all packages from Microsoft, basically. So,
but if you with various Office 365 packages, you'd get pretty much all of this thrown in, wouldn't you? So Office 365 E3, you get Flow, Power Apps, Teams, SharePoint, and then with E5 you get even more stuff. I forget exactly what it is that you get. The Microsoft packages are not that simple to understand, but there are some good. If you just Google sort of different Office 365 packages, say E3 versus E1, you'll get some handy charts to explain the differences.
But this, I guess, what Microsoft are doing, they're adding in kind of for the Power Suite, essentially, they're adding in these kind of extra tiers of licensing as well.
Yeah.
So these embedded licenses that if you use Power BI to a certain level, you need this bolt-on, or if you use Flow to a certain level, you need this bolt-on. So you can get so far with a lot of this stuff, and absolutely you can create Power Apps using your E3 license. But yeah, if you get so far and you want a premium connector to Salesforce, or you want a premium connector to Jira, then you're in that realm of needing you and potentially your users that Power Apps license.
So can you give us an example? So like Salesforce, how much would that cost? Do you know?
It's just Power Apps Plan 1 license, which would be in the realm of like $7 or $5
per user. Who's actually creating apps.
Creating apps and potentially consuming apps.
Okay, so it's not. It could potentially be pricey, but yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we have one attendee who said that their organisation will shortly be using Power Apps, so they'll be rolling it out soon. That's a company of about 12,000 employees, so that should be that should open up a lot of doors there in terms of capabilities to all those people. Will this webinar be recorded and available in the future? Yes, yeah, we'll be making a recording available on YouTube, and we'll send out a link to everyone who's attended. And also, has there been any mention of a client for Power App? Yeah, so there's like, the odd issue where the browser doesn't always play ball. There's issues using the web browser to build apps. Yeah, so is there a desktop client planned?
No, it's, well, not as far as I know. I mean, it's always been that it's going to be that web experience, so that, yeah, you can kind of keep it consistent and deliver these apps to, like, yeah, this audience. I haven't heard of any client app. People talk about it, but there's been no kind of official word from what I've read.
Right. But also for the building of, there's no.
Yeah, building of.
Okay,
sorry,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
That's what
Okay.
I was talking about. The Power App Studio is limited to web browser.
Browser
Right.
experience. Yeah.
Okay, somebody said, if we're using MS Dynamics for our sales pipeline, can we integrate MS Teams and PowerApps to build workflow and create deal teams sites for information, docs, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely.
We saw where Joe just very briefly showed the connector with MS Dynamics, didn't you?
I don't know for sure.
Oh, no, you said Salesforce.
Salesforce. So I use
Yeah.
Salesforce, but Dynamics has got one of the most powerful APIs out there. We can do so much to kick off teams, whether it's using webhooks inside of Dynamics or whether it's using a Power App to communicate with your Dynamics and then do something inside a team. So your Power Apps is almost your middleman or middleware, and then it triggers actions. There's certainly a lot you can do when it comes to kicking off actions in other things. A lot of the times you've actually seen that all handled even within Flow, so that Flow works as you're creating teams and creating dynamics and creating lists in SharePoint. And yeah, we can use Flow to handle all of that, and then you have your kind of your tools that sit around the outside of Flow, such as Teams and everything like that.
Another question: how do we manage permissions for Power Apps? Does it have to be the same or similar permission levels as SharePoint, like visitors, read, editors, and so on?
I mean, it can do. It depends to what level we're talking, whether it's the data, underlying data, or whether it's actually the interface itself. Because if it's the underlying data, I guess it depends where that data lives. If it's Salesforce is only going to show you data you can access.
Yeah.
If it lives in SharePoint, yeah, that's the exact model we have. Your view, your edit, and your full control. Then it's going to be consumed from there. If it's inside of Power Apps, we actually write custom functions for who can see what, based on AD attributes, based on AD groups, based on.
So we can do custom permission.
Yeah, I've played around with that. Yeah.
So, I mean, going back to this example, our app example, then, which I've helpfully closed. Oh, no, I haven't. Okay. So, if we were going to make these tabs, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, share my screen. If we're going to make these tabs permission controlled, we'd typically do that in Power Apps, wouldn't we? We just permission control a kind of a screen and a button. But of course, the list of teams that comes through here, that's permission controlled in Teams, right?
Wherever your data's coming from. Yeah, and I guess it comes down to, do you want to create completely separate apps, or do you want to actually just change the interface that's in front of you?
Yeah. So
we have lots of options there. You can create additional Power Apps for your call center workers, and additional Power Apps for your people, engineers who are out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of either or, really, which route you take.
Yeah.
We had another question about can Power Apps be used to show the visualization of data from a data warehouse?
Yeah, absolutely. So Power Apps actually has a plugin from Power BI. So if you're kind of using Power BI as your kind of data processing layer, we can show visualizations straight from Power BI.
Yeah.
So Power BI would connect to the data warehouse then. So there would be connectors within Power BI to do that.
Yeah, it depends on the data warehouse essentially. But if it can be moved into Power BI, that's the easiest route for us, because Power BI visualizations can be surfaced stuff in PowerApps.
Yeah.
If it's without Power BI, there are visualizations we can create. PowerApps has built-in charts. We can create kind of not basic charts, but we can create charts to a certain degree out of the box. But if it comes to kind of like lots of processing of data, lots of kind of having to kind of analyze that information to create those visualizations, BI is much better.
Right.
It's a much better product at doing that.
Yeah.
PowerApps isn't so much built for the analyzing and processing of that.
But you can integrate that into your PowerApps,
Exactly.
so it's kind of best of both worlds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Somebody asked, is Microsoft Teams like Slack? It is, yeah, a lot like Slack. It's a bit behind the feature set of Slack, as a standalone application, Microsoft Teams, to be honest. But I guess the difference is that it's connected to the whole of Office 365, so you get a lot of benefit from it being just one app in a suite of many, and they're all good.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Slack is a bit more a standalone product. Yeah.
It's going to give you a lot more possibilities in the future as your organisation gets more digitized.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The data warehouse will be hosted in Azure. I think that was in response to your answer. So that would be completely possible then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably the easiest type of data warehouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. By default, does everyone have access to create PowerApps? Good question. Yeah.
I believe we can actually limit who can create and who can't.
There are definitely some companies that I'm dealing with that don't have PowerApps enabled, even though they're entitled.
Yeah. So we don't know for sure on that one. We'll have to confirm that one. So we'll take a note of the questions and send out answers after the session. Can you audience apps, for example, sales figures from country to country, depending on a user's AD account location? Yeah, that's completely possible.
We can draw down. So as one of those connectors you saw there, perhaps you didn't see it, but I can query the user's profile and I can say, well, what's their office location? And based on that office location, we can show different charts. We can query APIs differently. Yep. So if we're querying this data from SharePoint, say, sales figures that are stored in SharePoint or Salesforce, we can pass different parameters to that API and we can consume that information differently based on who I am, who the user is accessing that data.
Yep.
So these screens that you saw, the dashboard, can be completely dynamic to who the user is.
Okay, so I think that was our last question. So we cleared the questions. I think we've done well on timing. Maybe we'll just give you back 5 minutes or so.
6 minutes.
Any closing comments from anyone, or any last comments or questions in the questions box? No, nothing there at the moment.
So we'll put this. We'll put the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel probably in the next couple of hours. If you could, we'd really appreciate it if you enjoyed the webinar. If you could just go into the YouTube channel and like that webinar and give us a nice comment, that would be really, really nice. So yeah, please, if you could do that.
Great. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Cool. Thanks very much for your time. We hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.
Cheers.